Good morning and welcome to a long overdue update on our garden here at Decisive Squirrel Homestead. We have some friends and family that have been asking how things are going, and we just haven't had a lot of time. We haven't had a lot of time to garden in the first place, and then making videos takes extra time because you gotta make the video and edit the video. We're about to have a little wildlife moment here. Let's see if we can catch it. Have a butterfly on this marigold and a robber fly thinking about having some breakfast. Robber fly gave up. Butterfly gets to enjoy her day. So we've just had a lot going on, and we have not gardened as much this year as we did last year, but we still have a lot. So let's take a look around and see what's going on, and then also talk about what we've already done that we didn't have time to film. So as you can see, the garden's looking quite a bit overgrown. Our weed barrier is not much of a barrier these days. It is definitely better than having nothing, but it has pretty much outlived its usefulness. We've had this weed barrier in place for, I think, a year and a half now. Today is June 10th. And we put this in before last spring's planting. So it's been down for a while and it's not perfect. Eventually weeds start coming up. So as you can see, we have not really kept up with pulling those weeds that came through, and especially on the edges, like this last row here, there is weed barrier under there, but the grass has totally grown up over it. We just don't have time to fight that battle, and so we're just letting things pretty much be. And what we plan to do is at the end of this season, when these things are done growing, we will pull this weed barrier and then we will let the chickens run over this soil for the end of summer and the beginning of fall. We have also noticed that this soil has gotten a little less productive this season. We did have it tested last year and it was doing really great, which is why we left the weed barrier in place. We didn't pull it up and add anything to the soil. But now it's struggling a little bit, and so we want to get the chickens in here to scratch things up and leave their nitrogen behind and see if that helps things for next year. So a quick rundown of what is currently in the garden. Let's start on the outside edge. So our dewberry and blackberry vines. So dewberries grow wild here. They always take off, no matter the weather, no matter the quality of the soil. They are happy, happy, happy. So we did get some dewberries. We've left some of the vines here, but we'll probably be kind of cutting these back and letting our blackberries take over. So we have two blackberry bushes that really took off this year. This first one has produced like crazy, huge blackberries. We've gathered about 2-gallon Ziploc bags full of berries that we have in the freezer. We're going to be making jam with later. And it's just been really, really happy. It's put up new canes for next year and has dropped some of its canes over to the ground and started to root again. So I think this blackberry bush is going to be very, very happy long term. Unfortunately, it's the one with thorns that is the happiest, because that's how life goes. Our other blackberry bush down here is a thornless blackberry. It's also happy, but not nearly as happy. So we've gotten some blackberries off of this. It's much nicer to pick from here, but it is what it is. So this one is doing well too, but just not quite as well as the other one. But I think next year we will be completely overrun with blackberries, which is a good problem to have. Our next row over here does not have much in it right now. We had onions here. Most of those have come out. Some of them on this row did not grow very well. We think that's a soil issue. It's me from the future. I forgot to talk about our onions and garlic. Those also did really well. So we have our onions and garlic braided and hanging up in our storage room. So lots of onions, lots of garlic. The garlic is still curing, and I've noticed there's a few cloves in there that are trying to grow. We need to deal with that. But overall, they're very, very happy. So we did get a good onion harvest and a good garlic harvest this year, which is exciting because that's really useful for canning. And then we have peppers that are growing here that are still small plants, but they're starting to take off and get bigger. On this next row is where we had most of our onions. The onions on this row grew really well. Over on the right hand side we have tomatoes climbing our cattle panel arches. And we have a few pepper plants down here at the end that are very happy and putting out large peppers. Our tomatoes on this side are mostly San Marzanos, so they are paste tomatoes for making spaghetti sauce and tomato sauce and all of that sort of stuff. So they are very happy. They are producing lots of tomatoes. The plants have not had as much TLC as they would like, but they're doing pretty good anyway. We've harvested about, I haven't actually weighed, but I would estimate about 40 to 50 pounds of tomatoes this year so far. I have a lot more I need to get out today because we're going to get storms tonight. We have made, with that first round of tomatoes, we've made spaghetti sauce, and we decided that we were going to freeze dry our spaghetti sauce so that we did not have the limitations that you have with canning. So we could fine tune our recipe to be more of what we wanted because we didn't have to follow canning rules. And then we put it in the freeze dryer, so when we reconstitute it, we can make it as thick as we want it to be. With canning, that gets to be a little bit of an issue, and there's a little bit more limitation on what you can do. So these tomatoes are doing pretty well. Down here at the end on my right are Romas. Romas always kind of struggle for us, but they're producing tomatoes. The plants just aren't very healthy and don't hold on very long. But that's okay because there are more San Marzanos at the end and they are very happy. We also have basil plants coming up in between the tomatoes. I don't think we actually planted any of those. I'm pretty sure those all came up on their own. Our next row over here on the right hand side, we have the tomato plants that don't look very good. Those are Blue Beauties and Prairie Fire tomatoes. And I'm not sure if it's the variety of tomato or our weather, but what we have found with these is they put out one good flush of tomatoes and then the plant dies. So we tried them last year. They're very good tomatoes, but they just don't continually produce for a long time. So we had some, these are still Blue Beauties, and then Prairie Fire, but you can see the plants are not very happy, and I don't expect them to produce any more. We will probably be pulling those this weekend. And then further down the row here, we have our cherry tomatoes of various kinds, and they are doing pretty happy. I need to do a little bit of pruning. Some of these tomato stems are getting pretty lanky. And then we actually ran out of our cattle panel arches. And so down here towards the end, these tomatoes do not have support, so they've kind of turned into a tomato bush, but they're still producing tomatoes. On the other side of this row, we have our cucumbers, and we were overrun with pickles in our pantry, so we did not want to be growing a ton of cucumbers, though these plants are doing a little bit better than expected. You see a giant cucumber down there that I've missed, and one here that's starting to turn yellow, which is not good because that will make the plant put out less fruit. So that needs to come off. If the plant thinks it's made seed, it's not going to make more cucumbers. So it looks like I need to go through and make sure I pick any cucumbers that are here today because I see a few that are a good pickable size. Harvestable size, I guess, is more accurate. We still have Swiss chard from last winter. I haven't actually picked any off of this plant, but that huge plant back there, that's Swiss chard that I planted last fall that grew over the winter and is still growing and putting out new leaves. So that's kind of a surprise. I did not expect that with our weather. Our next row over, you can see the left-hand side is overrun with weeds. There are a few carrots hiding in there that still need to be picked. And on the right-hand side are green beans and wax beans. We accidentally somehow ended up with a mix of beans. There are some that we like and some that are not our favorite, but are still fine. And we've gotten probably about 5 pounds of green beans at this point from this one row. And you can see the plants are not super fabulous, but they have still produced quite well. We've gotten a few meals out of those. So the green beans have gone pretty well. For fruit, our fig trees are doing really well. We thought these had completely died. The combination of no rain, very hot temperatures, and then one short, very, very cold snap over the winter we thought had killed off the figs. They looked like they were completely dead, but then they put up new shoots from the ground and they're quite happy. So we do have figs growing here. We're excited to see that. This one is a brown turkey fig, which is what grows best around our area. And then we've also tried, I think this one is called an LSU fig, and it's putting out some figs too. So that's exciting that both of these plants came back. We were really worried about how they were doing, but they both look happy now. Our chickens back here are still doing well, though their coop needs a bit of an upgrade. The wood of the coop is starting to get a bit worn down. We actually came out a few weeks ago and all of the chickens were out because they had managed to get the chicken wire open on the coop because the staples were loose because the wood's getting old. So that was fun to catch all of the chickens and get them back in. We do have a lot of predators around here, so they cannot roam free. They will definitely be carried off by a hawk or cats or raccoons or any numerous animals. We've had animals break into the coop before. We've never lost any chickens that way, but leaving them out is asking for trouble. So that was fun to round up all 11 chickens and get them back in the coop. But they are happy back there right now. They are 2 years old, just over 2 years old, 2.5 years old. And they are still producing about 6 to 7 eggs a day. So we still have quite a few eggs that we're getting. And we have been freeze drying raw eggs to store them up because these chickens are probably going to stop laying reliably this year. And so we will likely have a gap between these chickens not really laying well and getting new chickens to start laying. So we are starting to save back our eggs so that we can have eggs when we aren't getting fresh eggs. So they're happy. The other things that have gone on around the garden that we have not filmed, we harvested all of our potatoes. That did not go as well as we had hoped, but still went pretty well. We got more than we planted, but not by a lot. We are going to stop trying new things with potatoes and go back to our old standby that we used to do 15 years ago of just digging a long trench in the ground and putting potatoes in there and covering them up over time. But we did get quite a few potatoes and we turned all of those into mashed potatoes and then freeze dried them so that we have instant potatoes. So that went pretty well. We got our first apple this year. That was exciting. Our fruit trees are mostly doing well. There are some that really struggled because of the heat and the dryness last year. We tried our best to keep them watered, but it was really extreme last summer. And so we lost a couple of the trees, but most of them are doing well and have new growth. There is definitely a difference based on where the trees are planted. We have learned that there are some places that just seem to not be a good fit, but there's not really a fabulous way to know that without just trying. I guess you could figure that out, but our way of doing things, we just try. We did find in our wooded area back behind our property, we've just been throwing scraps out there because we would love if that turns into food forest eventually, but we don't really have the time and the money to put a lot of effort into it. And so we've kind of gone with the survival of the fittest idea and we just throw things out there. And we found some potato plants. So they were actually healthier than our potato plants that we were making efforts on. So those are probably ready to dig up today. So that's exciting to get a little bit of extra food that way. And I think that is about it that is going on around here. So we are at the point of the year where it is time to be canning or freeze drying, putting up food for the winter, and also making sure that we eat up any food that's left over from last year so it's not sitting around too long. We still have okra in the freezer, so we have actually not planted any okra or purple whole peas yet this year. We still could, it's not too late. And I keep saying I'm gonna do that, and then I keep not doing it because life is busy and there just hasn't been time. But we do still have fried okra in the freezer and we have purple whole peas canned up in the pantry. So I'm not super motivated to get that done. The purple whole peas also have a pretty high pest load. They bring on the leaf-footed bugs pretty heavily. So I don't know if we're going to end up doing that or not. We did try growing our zucchini and our squash in pots in a different part of our property, hoping that that would help with the squash vine borers. It did not. They still got squash vine borers, and they didn't grow as well because they were in a pot. So I think that was a bust too. We just need to grow a lot of squash in a lot of different places and do succession planting so that as they get taken over by squash vine borers, we can just pull the plant out. I think is going to be the best way to handle that in the future. So that's what gardening's about, a lot of trial and error and learning from your mistakes and just doing things that work in your area. Don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to go off the official recommendations and whatever the official book says. It's food. Just give it a try. You'd be surprised how much food you can make just throwing seeds in the ground. So that is our update for, I guess, most of the spring, actually. I don't think I've updated in a while. Like I said, today is June 10th, so we have made it through most of the spring, and we are starting to get into hotter weather. We are starting to hit 100-degree temperatures. We are supposed to have what's hopefully our last severe storm of the year tonight. We hope there's not anything major after this. We have the potential for very large hail tonight. There's the potential for like baseball-size hail. So hopefully we do not get that because the garden does not appreciate hail that large. But what will be, will be. So we're gonna get these tomatoes off the plant so we at least have those if the hail hits. And we'll see what tomorrow looks like. I hope y'all are having a great time and your gardens are growing well this spring, and we'll see y'all later. Bye.